Hey everyone, I'm Nökkvi from Birds of Play, and in this video we're going to be taking an in-depth look at the character of Lulu from Final Fantasy X. Before we get started, however, I just want to make it clear that this video will include some spoilers for the game, especially in relation to Lulu, since it is intended to be a somewhat in-depth analysis of her character. As a character, Lulu does have her fair share of admirers, although when asked about the reason for their admiration, a lot of fans can only think of two reasons, which is a bit of a shame since Lulu's appeal and virtues are more than just skin deep, I think. If you end up liking the video and want to support the creation of more Final Fantasy content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel and becoming a part of our growing Final Fantasy family. But without further ado, let's talk about Lulu. As a Final Fantasy character, Lulu is relatively unique both in terms of her design and her demeanor. Regarding her design, Lulu deviates heavily not only from the traditional depiction of black mages in the Final Fantasy series, but also from the general fashion sense of her own world. Lulu being the only character we see walking around the tropical island of Besaid, dressed in a heavy all-black ensemble. Wearing a low-cut dress that displays her cleavage, Lulu fits the mold of what is now often referred to as the big titty goth girlfriend. And like I mentioned earlier, this is where a lot of the favoritism that is directed at her character comes from. In addition to this, Lulu is also made even more marketable by her character archetype in the context of Japanese media, Lulu being what is known as a tsundere. A tsundere is a character with a personality that is initially cold or stern, and sometimes even hostile, but eventually starts to show a warmer and friendlier side over time. The term tsundere being derived from the term tsuntsun, which means to be disgusted or angered by something, and dere, which means to become affectionate. When contrasted with Riku's underage spunk and Yuna's more traditional and conservative sensibilities, at least in the original Final Fantasy X, it becomes apparent that the game ticks quite a few boxes when it comes to the marketability of its female leads. But even though Lulu might be said to fit a particular mold, there's still plenty to be said about her in her own right. For example, we can examine the justifications for her design and personality instead of just taking them at face value. Regarding Lulu's design, it is unclear when she actually adopted her darkly colored, interlaced belt extravaganza fashion sense, but we do know that Lulu has experienced a fair share of hardships. Among Yuna's guardians, Lulu actually holds the honor of most pilgrimages undertaken, her pilgrimage with Yuna and the others in fact being her third one. Lulu's first pilgrimage tragically resulted in the death of her summoner, Lady Jinnem, in the Cavern of the Stolen Faith. Her second pilgrimage as guardian to Father Zook alongside Wakka, similarly ending in the Calmlands as Zook chose not to continue. In the Final Fantasy X Ultimania Omega, it is stated that the experiences of her previous pilgrimages made Lulu want to overcome her weaknesses and surpass her previous self. Therefore, it is possible to imagine that before Lulu witnessed the death of her first summoner, she might have been a little less defensive, and perhaps even that her present attire might stem from getting hurt before, her clothes being an outward expression of her dedication to putting up a brave front. But Lulu isn't only doing it for herself, since a large part of her motivation has to do with trying to protect Yuna, to whom she acts as a big sister. Motomo Toriyama, a co-director on Final Fantasy X and the main director of Final Fantasy X-2, has stated that this dynamic was the reason Lulu's character was relegated to a supporting role in the sequel, since the older sister bit could have gotten in the way of Yuna's quest to find herself. Although in the original game, Lulu's role as a guiding figure on the pilgrimage does actually gradually diminish as the journey became more and more foreign, since it wasn't only foreign to herself, having never passed the Calmlands, but also to the Church of Yavin, as Yuna makes an enemy of the church and even casts away the institution of the final summoning. Perhaps Lulu can be summed up in part by one of her most memorable lines, as she says,
"No matter how dark the night, morning always comes, and our journey begins anew."
This line drives the point home that Lulu is she who gets back up, she who has hope despite her despair. Lulu is she who fails and tries again, she who suffers yet moves forward. On paper, the tsundere archetype might have limited appeal to some, not to mention a lot of players aren't really in the market for a waifu when they play a game like Final Fantasy X. But once we take a look behind the archetype, we are treated to a character who has her own rhyme and reason for acting the way she does, which furthermore is deeply intertwined with the story of the game and the communal tragedy Spira faces. So there you have it. Lulu isn't just a double D character, she's actually fully three-dimensional. Thanks for watching. We've covered quite a few characters from Final Fantasy X so far in this analysis series, but we still have some way to go. Who would you like to see next? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos, but until next time, cuckoo!